Flame retardant standards. What have we learned from fires past? The recent fire at Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas, July 25, 2015, makes me think about the almost 45 years that I have spent in fire prevention. As a sprinkler fitter, I learned the importance of following standards for my industry. Our Bible was NFPA 13, Standard for the Installation of Sprinkler Systems. I learned that sprinklers will not prevent fires from starting, but they will, if properly installed and maintained, keep fires from spreading. We seldom read or hear about fires that were prevented from spreading by the activation of the 24/7, 365 firefighter, the sprinkler system. An issue that we often deal with in the flame retardant industry is, quote, I have a certificate that proves that these materials are flame resistant, end quote. To me, and many in this industry, a lot of those certificates are not proof, merely evidence that at some point something was tested and you have a document stating that. Local building codes require that the owners, quote, show evidence of flame resistance, unquote. The officials have performed their due diligence based on the standards to allow materials or products to be used in buildings once they have seen the certificate. They are not required to validate the certificate. They are not required to do on-site testing of materials to make certain that they comply with National Fire Protection Association, International Fire Code, or International Code Council standards. Is it time for that to change? I personally found that many times a certificate of flame resistance issued for fabrics that or often I personally found that many times a certificate of flame resistance issued for fabrics or even finished drapes was not valid. The certificate may have been for a different material. It may have been a copy of a certificate for a different fabric. The certificate had been copied many times over and been presented as being the original for the material in question. NFPA has a testing standard that can be used to verify that a material is flame resistant, the NFPA 705 Field Flame Test. The 705 Field Flame Test, when properly utilized, will prove one of two things. One, if the material being tested burns beyond the accepted criteria, it is not flame resistant. Two, if it does not burn beyond the acceptable test criteria, it can be reasonably assumed that the material is flame resistant. I make the distinction between the two statements because the field flame test is less stringent than the NFPA 701, Standard Methods of Fire Tests for Flame Propagation of Textiles and Films, that is performed in a test lab. The 701 test is the basis for many of the certificates of flame resistance that are accepted by the authority having jurisdiction. If a fabric meets the requirements of the 705 field flame test, the probability of passing the 701 lab test are high, but not guaranteed. It is seldom that the fabricator will send samples of the newly acquired material to a testing lab to be subjected to the NFPA 701 flame test. The document that they have obtained from the mill is generally good enough to send with their finished goods. I say that many times it is not good enough for the safety of the people who will be exposed to the finished product. Many drapery fabricators are willing to accept a certificate of flame resistance from the manufacturer of the fabric they buy. The certificate accompanies the material from the overseas factory or mill. I think that it is time the standards and acceptable practices be reviewed. Maybe evidence of flame resistance is not enough. Maybe the claims about the flame resistance of material need to be verified by either the authority having jurisdiction or even a third party. Okay, the expense of doing so will increase the cost of doing business. Have you thought about the cost associated with not taking the additional steps to ensure the safety of the visitors, employees, and first responders. When events like MGM Grand in 1980, Las Vegas Hilton 1981, and the Monte Carlo 2008 happened, each event caused changes in how Las Vegas dealt with building and moved this city to the forefront of fire prevention and life safety. I am confident and hopeful that the Cosmopolitan event of 2015 will bring forth change as well. Thank you for listening. Ralph Glidden, sprinkler fitter, retired, and partner in Nevada Flame Prevention Specialists.